I noticed there's a restaurant out there that does like a locals card in the winter. So you pick up the locals card and you get 10% off on your meal or something. But it's
Ah,
kind of fun because it's like, oh, I'm a local, you know?
yeah.
Things like that, rewards cards. And we're
Mhm.
back to all of that, the promos that you need
Yes.
in those off season.
Yeah, and it goes back to understanding your business, understanding, like you said, the seasons within the seasons of your seasonal business. And you understand kind of the cash flow that comes with that. When you're setting money aside, then you're taking that money, you're setting it aside, but then you have your eye towards the future.
Right. And you have to really compare month to month, right? At the end of a month, you have to sit down with that P&L, that income
Hmm.
statement. What did I bring in? What did I spend? And what was my bottom line? And
Hmm.
looking ahead to the next month, what are my fixed costs
Hmm.
that are not going away?
Right.
And what's variable? What can I change?
I loved reading through the bio that you put in.
Oh,
Can you share
sure.
some of your background?
Yeah, so my father was in the Air Force, so we moved around. I was born in Germany, and we moved to Ohio. Then we moved to Japan, and from 6 years old to 10 years old, we lived there.
Oh wow, are you
And
fluent?
I knew more then,
Of course, of
and
course.
they had a little Japanese lady that came into the American school and taught us the keywords. But we were very young. But my father was one of these people that would never go to the main when we were in other countries or other towns. He always wanted to go in the off places where no one went.
I
So
like
I
it.
had really long blonde hair that I sat on. It was that long. And he would take us into these, areas of the country that never saw Americans, right? We would just drive and drive and drive and get out of the car, and all these people would come running over. And they thought I was like a goddess,
Yeah.
because they'd never seen blonde hair
Hmm.
and blonde hair, blue eyes, more or
Right.
less, right? So they'd just be like, but nicer people everywhere. If there's anything being in the military as a military brat taught me is everyone has a family,
Hmm.
everybody cares, and they're really very good to you all over the world. And
Were
there's
you
that
guys?
community in the
Yeah.
military that
Oh my gosh.
really is
Strong bonds.
unmatched.
Very
My
strong
mother had
bonds.
friends everywhere she went because she came from Brooklyn and went off with my father at a very young age and traveled. Um, he ran the mess hall,
Yeah.
so he
Okay.
was a
Yeah.
chef.
Yeah.
So he would bring home that was when people in the military did that.
Oh,
Now
we
they,
still do.
oh, well, they
Yeah.
contract out for a
They
lot of
do that
food.
as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
But back then you were drafted and they said, you go into the mess hall and
Hmm.
you're going to do that. And he rose up the ranks and ran the whole
Yeah.
enterprise or whatever. But he'd come home with trays and trays of food and there'd just be us,
It's interesting
trying to eat.
as the American culture has shifted to being, I'd say maybe like a little less authoritative, not authoritarian, but authoritative in our culture. That maybe we were like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, just like as far in like a professional setting. That kind of authoritative um societal kind of foundation
Norms
norm,
and
right,
right.
was seen to the extreme in the military through the authoritarian, like,
Well, they take orders, right, in the
right.
military.
But
So,
it's interesting because as society is shifts, so do the personalities of the people, and all of those people get into the military, and then they stay in, and then they progress, and so like it's shifted. Like the culture is much different, and into down to like the policies. And when I say the military, I'm referring to the army because I didn't serve in any other branch. That was the
right,
only one.
right.
So, but I remember hearing stories from my dad who was in Vietnam and like going through basic and stuff, and where they like the drill sergeants would literally like beat them up.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I thankfully I didn't have to experience that.
Yeah, and I
But
think my father was lucky that he got into the food service part
mhm.
because he was never on the front line.
Well, this is the interesting part. This is what brought up this whole line of thinking for me is that in when I performed in two different sectors of the army. One of them was more kind of frontline, like combat arms side of the military, and then I shifted and I went into intel. And so the dichotomy between those two things was
Right.
just dramatic
Sure.
because you have to train your entry level privates to be able to brief confidently to, you know, lieutenant colonels and colonels and things like that.
Right.
And so the level of communication, like, it's different.
There's
And
a
that was a hard
hierarchy,
transition.
right?
But
That
the
you have
one
to get used to.
but the one thing, speaking of the mess hall and the mess NCOs, the one thing where I saw the leadership, like the sergeants and staff sergeants, really still have that hardcore authoritarian
Yes,
leadership style
discipline.
is in the mess hall.
Right.
The leaders,
Yeah.
those NCOs in the
My
mess hall.
father was good for that.
Oh my
He
gosh.
was a son of a gun, you know. He
Yes.
definitely, and he raised us with a lot of discipline and, you know, those kind of values, which at the time I hated, but
Of
now
course.
I appreciate
100%.
because I realize how important that really has been to my career and to what I do, and even as an advisor, talking to people about setting some structure into your
Right.
business and planning ahead and looking at where you're going and putting things in place and training people that work with you so their mindset matches yours. And it's
Yes.
really important.
It
It
is.
really is.
It's extremely important.
Yeah, so that military background,
Yeah.
I wish my kids had it,
Right.
truthfully,
Right.
but it didn't pass to the next generation.
Yeah.
I don't think, but but it was great. It
Yeah.
was really good, and I felt very special back then because every new school I went to, I was like the new kid, which can be good and bad,
Right.
right? My sister and brother had more trouble with it than I did, but yeah, you had to make all new friends.
Mhm.
And so when I was in junior high, we got to West Hampton, and that was the last place my father was stationed.
Okay.
So got to know the whole seasonality of West Hampton and the summer people, and worked in the local A&P, and I was a cashier, and they moved me into the customer service person. So I got to talk to all the summer people when they brought back their moldy grapes and wanted me to return them. And I'm like, well, when was the last time you checked in on those grapes, you know? Because they would buy them, go back into the city, then come back out, and they'd be moldy, and they wanted new ones.
Like,
Kind of strange. But anybody you talk to that's a local out in the Hamptons or, you know, in any of these seasonal places, they have a special affinity for tourists and summer people because they're important, they're vital, and that's why I did this seasonal workshop is because it's a whole different crowd coming
Right.
in, and it's very unique.
Yeah.
And you have to be the kind of flexible person that can deal with all kinds of people and not take it out on them and realize that they're feeding the economy and it's really important and your business depends on it and everyone knows that. And then they go and all the locals come out of the hole and you know, and vent and complain about it or whatever. But there's also a lot of really good that comes out of that. And, you know, the Hamptons has changed a lot also, but there is definitely a certain mentality that's out there and a sense of entitlement sometimes with people that you have to deal with. But it was a great place to grow up. It's beautiful. It's got the beaches and, you know.
And it's so I love how it kind of segues perfectly with you entering in and now having been a business. How long have you been a business advisor for the SBDC?
Well, I'm one of those boomerang employees. So I was
Alright.
one for 8.5 years,
Wow.
and then I left and went into commercial lending
Okay.
for 9 years.
Wow.
And did all that business banking stuff, which
Very
was
important.
great
Yeah.
because I learned how I started out as a regional credit officer for Citibank and really working with bankers trying to get loans through, which I always wanted to. When I was a business advisor, I wanted to be on the other side. You know, we refer to banks, but I wanted to be the one making those decisions or having more say in who gets money and who doesn't, and understanding the risk management of that whole process, which I really got to understand. They put me through credit training. I really understood it, got to underwrite loans, and it was fabulous. It really was. So I was at Citibank. I went to Chase. Then I went to a little bank called Gold Coast Bank, which was wonderful because they could do things the big banks can't do sometimes. So you get to work with community lending, which is very different than the big banks. Big banks are basically they can get whoever they want.
Yep.
So they have the ability to pick and choose the
They,
best.
yeah, they can be the most picky
Yes.
about who they. Yeah, and that's why
They're good. They're good if you're that if you're
yes.
that person that has the great credit and has the collateral and a good opportunity, they'll jump in, no doubt. But they're not the first loan that you get when you're starting a bank. A business usually.
Yep. We did a whole series on access to capital, and that's when we brought in Kendro from Dime for him to speak about, the opportunities there and all the different banks that we work with in this local area, M&T and all of that. It's just so you have to take on a different perspective when you're first entering into the space. So it's
appetite. It really is appetite. And once you get better at understanding it, and that's really as business advisors, and being on the lending committee, trying to get all business advisors to get a better sense of this one is better for a fintech, or this is better for a community bank, or this is really a Chase deal. I mean, obviously you want to go to the bank first that you bank at because they should like you. They should want to grow with you.
You have a relationship already.
Yeah. But it doesn't always work that way.
So it's cool that the way that your early life played out, gave you a particular type of insight into the discussion that we're going to be having today, which is all about seasonal businesses. Right. And I've worked for seasonal businesses. I've vended lemonade for a couple of years at the College World Series because I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. So that's where the College World Series is always played. So I'd go there and I'd vend there. We'd shovel snow in the winter. We'd rake leaves in the fall.
Early entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. And just, you try to find any way that you can make money as a kid because you just, you want to buy candy and stuff. So
right.
It's the important things.
Being that way is, I respect that. I think I love kids that really know what they got to get and they get it and they find ways to do it. That's definitely entrepreneurship.
Right.
Way early.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you don't even think about it that way, but it does kind of retrain your mind to like, how does this work? The amount of work that's required to. And the fact that
you gravitate towards that.
I'm just because that's gonna come up as a reminder in 2 minutes. So if you wanna.
Yes. Yeah. As soon as it went off, I go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Oh my God. And I never get anything. Oh, it's probably. Okay. Silent mode on. We're good. Thank you.
No problem.
Winning. See, that's the familiarity of iPhone users.
Not comes, and then 2 minutes later it'll be like.
And then there's the phone call, and then Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I wouldn't have known. This is why Sarah's the rock star. She keeps this thing together. She's the glue.
Wow, that's good. She's getting good at it.
Oh my
be a
gosh,
producer.
she's incredible.
Next thing.
Yeah, she is. She's our executive broadcast producer. So
everybody has a role to
play. / engineer. Should I give her a new title almost every day? And they're all
Why
around.
not? It's just a title.
Yes.
Give her whatever she wants. CEO, CFO, CIO.
Yeah, she's the COO of the podcast. But yeah, so with the seasonal businesses, could you give a sort of brief overview of what that means? I know we kind of dove into it with a couple of my own personal examples, but what are some of the seasonal businesses that you work with?
Well, I do actually live now in that area, too, so it's great. I work at the Southampton campus as well, 1 day a week, so I get a lot of people that are out there, a lot of trades, electricians and plumbers and pool contractors and heating and air conditioning and landscaping. Those are your big ones. Restaurants, lots of restaurants.
That's a good point.
Marinas. In fact, I have a marina today, actually, that's like selling over to a new, people that work there are buying the business. So this is their closing today.
Oh, how fun is that?
Remembering. Yes. And we love to celebrate that. I tell my clients all the time, please keep me in the loop all the way through.
What's the name of the?
Dixon's Marine. Yes. And so it's nice. It's father and son, and they're buying out, the owner, and
my heart is
that's the way it should be.
That's beautiful,
right? That's the way it should be. So there's a lot of that family-owned business out there that goes from one generation to the next. Right. You'll see a lot of that out there, and in fact, in certain towns, certain names pop up all the time, either on street names or the names of stores. But it's a great community to grow up in, and there's a lot of employment opportunity there for high school kids, for returning college kids. They make great seasonal workers, and same time next year, they come back, and it's really important to cultivate a good staff of people that will return every year.
That is difficult. And so that kind of goes into the next area that we want to talk about, which is kind of preparing for your busy season.
Right.
And so staffing would be one of my number one concerns as a business owner of a seasonal business. So do you have any tips or strategies for how to manage the employee and the staffing of your business?
Well, number one, if you have staff and you like them, treat them well. And encourage them to come back, encourage them to stay on, encourage them, if you're year-round, like a restaurant, to come in and work during their breaks, give them sources of income. I know my son worked at a restaurant. He's not a seasonal worker, but from the time he was 17, he's now 35, and he's still in that business in some way, even if it's one night a week.
Sure.
So keeping them part of the family and communicating with them, saying, hey, it's March already, and we're getting ready, want to see you come back, can I get your commitment? Reach out.
Communication.
Yeah, make
leadership.
sure that the good ones are the ones you really want to hold on to. And don't forget retired people, too, because a lot of people retire in their early 60s, and not that they want to do that, but they could be a resource. And AARP.org has a job posting site for those people.
How interesting.
Yeah, so,
that's great.
It's possible that you might pick up somebody there. But I've had a lot of seasonal businesses, and out there, the big problem is commuting. On the South Fork of Long Island, they call it the Trade Parade. So all in the morning, it takes forever. I mean, seriously, I live 9 miles from the Southampton office, and it takes me over an hour during the trade parade. So, and you'll hear that from lots of people, and it's a constant problem. Everybody is trying to fix that problem out there.
Got it.
And also on the North Fork now with the wineries and the apple orchards, and sometimes you just start to go on that path and you're stopped in your tracks and nothing's moving, right? Not fun. No. So if you have to work out there, that's a real drawback.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So it's hard. It's really hard. I also have hotels out there, and some of them put people up in their hotel. They get rid of a room and put some people in there, and they do some accommodations. Actually, Southampton has some dormitory availability for some of the bigger seasonal places out there where they can put people up. I know I dealt with a business in Sag Harbor once when I was in banking, actually, and they have to bring the people out from Manhattan, and they actually built residential apartments on the second floor so that they could put them there. It was that important to their business. You need to have people that are there, and can't have them stuck in traffic for hours. So
and you see this across some of the even really big, well-known industries. I think Tesla is building like a sort of like not like a city, but like almost like a campus,
like workforce housing.
Right, exactly. I think Google's done it in the past if they're not still doing it.
Transportation's those hubs are super important. Like Ronkonkoma is doing that big hub, where they're putting. I was shocked. I went into the city recently out of Ronkonkoma, and I was like, where did all these apartments come from? But they're all so close to the train that goes to the city where the employment is, and good employment. So, yeah.
So when we're thinking about somebody that's a little bit smaller, like let's just use landscaping. That's a pretty easy example. So you're gearing up. It's getting like right now, and this is so perfectly timed. Well done. This is all you when it comes to the timing of this. So beautifully planned. So if I'm the owner of a landscaping company and it is currently the last day of February, we're getting ready to get into it.
Better have some stuff going on because there's spring cleaning first.
Right.
It's hard with landscapers. I know that immigrants are a very hot topic these
Mm.
days, but they make up a lot of the temporary seasonal help
Mm.
in those trades because a lot of people don't want to do that. No, not many people want to get up on a roof and do roofing.
Right.
And a lot of those jobs in farms and the wineries.
Clearing gutters
really,
and
yeah, it's really hard to find a teenager that wants to do that
Mhm.
or even a college student.
And somebody
So-
that you can rely upon.
Yeah.
Somebody
So
that
there's
has,
a lot of word of mouth going
That was
on.
exactly that's
Yeah,
exactly
a
what
lot
I
of
was
word
going to
of
go
mouth.
with is so you might have a certain percentage of people, like you were saying, you treat your employees well.
Yep.
They know that they're going to be respected, their time's going to be honored, they're going to be paid a reasonable amount for their work, and it's going to be consistent. So you treat them well, you create an environment that's enticing for them to come back to.
Right.
You keep your communication level open with them and let them know, as not today, but maybe a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, you're like, hey, we're getting ready, we're planning, this is what we're doing, to keep them in the loop. But then when it comes to the word of mouth, it's one of the best ways that I've seen to get high quality employees into your business is through referrals. And so
Yes.
when you treat those
Yes.
people with respect, you're doing more than one thing.
Right.
They get to talk to their friends about it, like, yeah, no, I work for this company, and it's kind of laborious, but man, it's so good. Like the leadership there is amazing, and I love working for them. And even just that opens up the door. They're like, are they looking for people? Like they'll talk to their friends.
Absolutely.
And then,
absolutely.
and then, like
It's
you
human
said,
nature,
when you
right?
go to communication and you're communicating with these people, and you know that you need additional workforce because a certain percentage is just not going to come back, then you can communicate that with them.
Even with teenagers and stuff, they
Yes.
want to work with their friends.
100%.
Right? That's a big thing out there, right?
Absolutely.
Like whether you're a lifeguard or you're working at the, McDonald's or any of those little fast food things. My husband worked at a place called Chicken on the Run, which doesn't exist anymore, but we have pictures of him, standing over vats of oil, but his friends were there, and it makes it so much fun. You're doing something different together. You're learning. I think business owners also should look at them as mentees, instead of just employees. I'm teaching you about my business and helping you grow and learn. And if you go to college and you get a business degree, this will have meaning to you. You'll start to understand why you have to have enough inventory and how do you scale up and all of that. I think even a silly thing like buying lunch for everybody on a Friday or letting them eat there if it's a restaurant. Something, maybe it's a certain menu that you have for them, but, give them some bennies.
Oh my gosh, it can make all the
So
difference in the
important.
world.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference in the world.
If you can afford it.
Right.
But even if not, then a lot of positive reinforcement.
Well, this is a
really
good
important.
this is a good segue into like the next kind of portion in the prepping when we're talking about kind of like cash flow and capital and preparing for that. Those kinds of things, if you're thinking about it now and if you're listening to this podcast now, then you have the opportunity to think about it as you're gearing into the season. And when you're building out your budget, like you have the opportunity to budget those kinds of things into your workflow, like when you're getting ready to surge and boom, but so talk about kind of the cash flow analysis and how to prepare from that perspective for a business that's gearing up, getting ready for their busy season.
Right. Well, I know we talked about entrepreneurs being salespeople.
Yes.
Salespeople typically don't enjoy the bookkeeping part. It's hard to find people that, it's a yin yang thing, but it is the least exciting part of the business, but probably the most important. Because a lot of what we see as business advisors are people that come to us that run out of money, that don't have enough. Where am I going to get it? Who has it? Whatever. And no bank wants to jump in when you're, drowning, right? The Titanic's going down and you're like, life raft, right? And then, nah, too late. So you want to think about that. And it's funny because as a person on my personal side, I've always been kind of a budget kind of person. When I was young, I bought this like home finance calendar, and my husband and I would write down what we spent every day. I know that's really OCD type thinking, but it trained us to realize where's the money going. And in business, you want to know how much is coming in and how much is going out. And at the end of the day, do you have an excess or do you have a deficit,
Mhm.
or you don't have enough, and you're starting the next month in the hole, right? So if you have no idea, and many don't, like, what is a profit and loss statement? Well, it's just very simple. It's how much money is coming in and how is it coming in. That's a very important thing. What products are selling? What services? An example I always bring up is a pool company. Like, now they're putting pools in the ground, right?
Mhm.
So all their sales are installations. In a month or two, it's going to be opening pools, and then it's going to be maintaining pools.
Right.
So how does that impact your inventory? How does that impact your labor? Right? Because when you're maintaining, you're running around in cars using fuel. You've got the chemicals that you have to drive around with, and you have the time at each place. How are you going to monitor that
Mhm.
and give the kind of service you need? So it's different types of employees, right? You got the construction people in the beginning, and then you have the friendly maintenance pool guy, right?
Oh,
So,
that adds extra layers of consideration that you have to
Mhm.
make with the employees.
Yeah.
And so, and the way that you have the conversations with them, so I think it's all kind of goes back to having a thorough understanding of your industry and your business, which
Right.
goes into your ability to kind of project how this is going to go. And so when somebody can break it down like that, and just like you did for the pools, it's so perfect. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
this is the season right now where people want the pools, the construction to start.
Right.
So that way, when it's warm enough to use it, it's fresh, it's brand new, it's
Yeah.
in the ground, and they
It's-
can, yeah,
stops after Memorial Day. I mean, nobody does that because nobody wants that going on in their neighborhood. If I'm paying $100,000 a month, with unbelievably, some people do in the Hamptons, to be at a house, I don't want to hear cranes and things and someone getting a new roof. That doesn't happen in the summer out there.
Interesting.
So it stops. So that's where the trade parade comes in, because right now until summer, it's going to start building, and all the electricians and contractors. In fact, if you don't have a contractor and you're looking to do something, it's really challenging if you wait any longer, because they all get booked up.
Right.
And we actually had a personal story where we had a contractor ready to do our kitchen. The dumpster was coming on Monday. On Sunday, he called to say he got a better job and he wasn't going to be doing our job.
Wow.
So
That's one
we were
choice in
like,
business.
okay. So now we went looking for a contractor, and they're all booked up.
That's crazy.
And they can pick and choose. Back to the bank that we were talking about that can pick and choose. Contractors also have a lot of opportunity. The other thing, though, is that you have to follow up. You have to deliver. A lot of contractors miss the boat on that. I think, when they come in your home and they say they're going to give you an estimate and then they never do, or they send you
Right.
an estimate and then they don't call to say, what did you think? How do I stand? Do they want your business or
Right.
not? You get that feeling very quickly.
Yeah,
So-
that goes into when I'm working with businesses and we're talking about your unique value proposition,
Yes.
guaranteeing, like, it can be as simple as that. People want to make this into something like big and glorious, and you have to do something so tremendously different, and it's oftentimes it's just doing the little things better.
It
Just
is.
guaranteeing the fact that you're going to come out there because they reached out to you, and that's your policy.
Yeah,
And it goes back to those kind of core beliefs that you have that guide the business. And if you don't take the time to really, like, write those out and, like, post them up, like, these are the values, these are the beliefs that we have that our business is founded upon. And if it's taking care of our customers, putting them first, then, or valuing them, then your decision tree is going to be a little bit different when you're considering how you interact with people that are reaching out
Right.
to you.
And I could also take that online. People have reviews that they don't address. I mean, I don't do anything, and I'm not the youngest person in the room, okay? So I don't do anything without checking out reviews. I don't care if they're fake or not. In my opinion, if they're not addressed, like, even if somebody goes on and says, I don't know this person, I don't know where they, please call us to clarify whatever the problem is. Then I feel like, at least, okay, if it's fake, at least they know it's fake,
Yep.
and they're addressing it.
So
but-
interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah.
We have we have in one of our videos recently, like each video that we put out, essentially in the comment section, it's an opportunity to review. And
Oh,
so we've been having
I
this.
better be good.
We were having a very interesting conversation, and Erica, our director here at Farmingdale, her and I were, talking about the best way to engage with our people, and those that are frustrated or don't agree with some of the things that we're saying, which is totally fine. But our principles and our beliefs guide us to that exact point where it's like we're gonna engage with them and let them know that like we're real people. We acknowledge them as real
Right.
people, and even
Right.
if at the end of it we don't align, we want to make sure that like we're present and we're there. And so
We
if
hear
people,
you.
yeah, so
Yeah,
if
we
people
hear
want to comment, they know that there's somebody on the other side that's actually looking and listening and is willing to give them the time of day. It shows a level of value,
Oh,
you know.
absolutely. And as a consumer, I want to even today, even though everything's online, I still want to feel like other people had a good experience, hey, Matt was great, he came back, he followed up. They really cared. Look at these pictures, look at what they did. I mean, those things are just basic customer service, but a lot of it gets lost nowadays. People
does.
think it's not important. It's golden.
Exactly.
It's like writing a thank you card from the old days, right? But you get one in the mail and you're like, wow, this person actually used a
Hand
pen and paper and wrote to me. That's crazy. But it's standing out, it's being
Exactly.
different. And I remember the guy that did our driveway. We had all these guys coming and they give us estimates. This guy goes, wait a minute, can you come out to my car? And I was like, what? Go out. He opens up the back of his car and he has literally a photo album of projects he did, but also an instructional thing where he says, this is what the driveway looks like. This is what it'll look like in the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And I was like, this guy's like an educator, which really are the best salespeople, right? They
Mhm.
take time to explain. I felt so comfortable with him. And I knew this was the guy because he just didn't, take measurements, say, I'll send you an estimate. He wanted me to understand the process,
Mhm.
how this will disrupt my life, how much time can I be out on the street.
He's telling a story.
Yes.
The storytelling is so
It was
powerful.
awesome. Then
And
you
that,
go online and people say that about him.
yeah.
It's like John's great. He showed us from step by step. And I was like,
And it's
yeah.
beautiful to use imagery to help
Yes.
inform the story. So you're showing like literally this is what it's going to look like. Here's
Yeah.
the experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about being client centric, and putting them first, always thinking about the project and your work and everything that you do. And this goes for all businesses.
Right.
And especially the seasonal ones. If you want to create loyal people that that are going to use you for a season and then essentially forget about you for the rest of the season, when it comes up time, what kind of impression did you leave with them?
And it's not even about you. It's about who you talk to, right? Because we had a contractor that didn't complete the project. And I thought, how foolish to do like the whole project and miss the end. And now that's all I remember. And that's all I'm going to tell people.
Yeah.
And
I'm
now
never
people
going back
ask
to-
me, who did you use? And I go, nah.
Not
He
that
didn't
one.
finish it. He didn't
Yep.
put the handles on the drawers.
Yep.
I had to do that myself. It's that. I always say it's that old Verizon commercial. I don't know if you remember it. There was one guy and he had like 60 people standing behind him and he said, use Verizon and this is what you get, kind of thing. But it's true. It may not be you, Matt, that even wants my business, but it could be your aunt or your uncle. And if you don't see that network behind every person you meet, you're missing the boat.
It's a
because
great visualization.
People
Yes.
love stories, and
Yes.
you're over at their house and like talking about their bathroom reno
Always.
or the restaurant they went to or whatever, and it's always about the experience and the people and how did they feel? How did they feel special? Did they was it a good deal?
So true.
All of
There
that.
was there's a restaurant. I think that we were talking about it before, Sarah, but there's a couple of them. One is right near where they have all the Broadway shows
In
in the
Manhattan?
city. Yeah. And what they do is and it's a beautiful strategy for a restaurant business, is they feed directly into whatever the season is. They completely change every outdoor arrangement, and it's not subtle. Like the way that they do their decor on the outside and on the inside, it's so I want to say it's over the top, but it's not. It's not over the top. It's all in, like, it just hugs you when you're going in. And so for like Valentine's Day, you'll see these like giant like pink and red like floral like awnings that you're like
Memorable.
walking through,
Right.
and it creates an experience. And
Right.
the cool thing is it's always changing with the season. They're
Right.
tracking the seasons coming up, and they're thinking, okay, it's Halloween, how are we going to do this? And you walk inside and it's beautiful, and it's like, I don't remember the slightest of what I ate. I don't even remember, like, I think it was pretty good. But I remember everything about the way it looked and the way that I felt when I was there and the type of emotion that it brought out. And that's like where their focus is.
Well, I think I told you, right, in December, like around Christmas, there's a bunch of bars in the city that completely, I mean, you walk in and you're hitting your head on Christmas lights, but it's part of the
Well, it's a
excitement
lot
of going
excitement,
there.
And
Yes.
think of, you tell everybody.
Right, and then you're
right?
going in, I'm going in because of course I want pictures for my social media, right?
Yes.
But they cater to it, and it draws, I mean, it's not terrible for me to get from where I live to the city. It's about an hour for the train ride, but am I going to do that for the Christmas vibes? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's such a
Yeah.
brilliant
It's a destination.
Yeah.
It's such a brilliant idea,
Yeah.
like, to consider, especially if you're in the business where you're physically doing like work, if you're doing contracting work or something. If you're capturing the process for the person that is immediately adaptable and like a file that you can give to them, that is like a social media post, that is the transformation of their house. If it's like the renovation in their kitchen, like then they can show people and share it, like, look at what they did in our kitchen.
Right,
And then
right.
think about that internal kind of promotional content you do. Think about it with the pool, even with landscaping. You're like, yeah, this is, how we looked at coming out of the dead season into the growing. And then you see this like kind of phase by phase, where it's like time lapsed and they're going through and everything's, and then you see this beautiful, all the flowers that are planted and everything.
I
that
have
are
a
there.
restaurant that's opening right now that I'm working with in Setauket, and they have on their Instagram just what you're talking about. Like, it's building, the excitement's building, and I love everything that they're doing on their socials, which
smart.
just builds. And everybody's like, the comments are like, "When are you opening? When are you opening? Tell us when you're opening." And they're not telling anybody yet because
Create
it's
that
just still a couple weeks
suspense.
ago.
Right.
But they have a bunch of people waiting. I mean, just
So smart.
waiting. And now for seasonal businesses, do you have a customer database? Do you have contact information of your regulars, right? That
Yeah, so
you've
planning
seen? Yeah.
planning out those systems and the type of even digital infrastructure that you
Right.
need in order to manage this.
Right.
Whether you have something that you manually put together through like an Excel spreadsheet, or you're going out and you're getting like an email marketing service, like Constant Contact,
And how
like
do you
MailChimp.
incentivize people to give you that information? Because a lot of people will say, "Oh, they don't want to give it." Okay, so how about a frequent rewards
Yep.
kind of program,
Yep.
right?
I call them lead
something,
magnets.
Yeah, and I will send you specials to your email that no one else will get.
Yep.
Okay. Honestly, okay.
Yeah, I'm in. Yeah. 'Cause
Everybody does it.
At
you
the
know,
cost
it's-
of what? At the cost of giving you my email address where you're going to send me discounted prices
set up
for
a
the
separate
next-
email
yeah.
account just for that. Then so that it doesn't hit your regular
Email
but
lists
It
are
gets
so
crazy.
important.
It gets
It's so-
crazy, but I'm on so many because you buy things,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And they automatically put you on. The big
Oh, yeah.
guys have it all figured out. And I delete most of them, but every now and then I'll need something
Yes.
and I'll just wait a day because I know I'm going to get a promo. in
I do
the-
the same thing.
Yeah.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 'Cause-
And it's understanding that about your consumer, right?
Yes.
And everybody likes a good deal. Everybody likes a bargain. Everybody likes a prize, if you
Mhm.
will. I love restaurants that have punch cards only because it's fun.
It is.
You know,
It
you go
is.
in, "Oh, I won my free bagel
Yep,
today." You know?
Yep. And because especially when you know it's something that you're going to be doing anyway, so
Yeah.
you can think about that. Going back to the landscaping service, like if we're mowing your grass once a week, like
Right.
after 7 weeks, like you get the next one free or something,
Right.
something of that
Right.
sort.
Or the person that refers you.
Right. Yeah, no, you
Your
can go
new
referrals
customer,
too.
right?
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah, a
That's-
month of free.
I have two things that are like coming to the top of my brain right now. So of course, like going to get my nails done. Nails done's the best one because they have punch cards, and you either get like a free eyebrow waxing or a free manicure.
And the
Awesome.
cool thing, if you think
bet.
about
And
that,
it introduces you to a
Of
different.
I was
course.
literally just gonna
Yeah.
say, I was like, the brilliance of the strategy
Smart.
is you get that done, you're like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Maybe
Right.
this
I'll
is
do
something
it
I'm gonna
again.
add to my routine.
And of course, I'm gonna. Do you have a card? Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. Of course I do.
Yes.
And
it's
then-
fun though. It makes it fun, you know, and
And it creates loyalty.
Right.
it definitely creates
Well,
loyalty.
so then the dentist, like our dental insurance that we get here, right? So there's 3 of us that all go to the same dentist, and their referral program is incredible. So if you refer somebody and they go and they sit for their initial consultation, which is, it's a lengthy process, but this dentist, I'm terrified of the dentist. It's the only dentist I've gone back to on multiple occasions. If you go and you sit through that long consultation where they take pictures of your mouth and everything, you and the person that referred you get a choice of a $20 gift card to Target or Panera.
Oh.
Nice.
How simple is that?
So
How
I'm talking
from the business, how
$40.
simple is that?
You know,
Right.
it costs money, but it's what you put into marketing. People buy flyers and all that stuff. This is the stuff that really
Right,
makes
because
an
think
impact.
about, like, it's
Yeah.
a small token off of your back to bring that service that people are coming in. So I told my husband went in. So between us, right, I mean, that's $40.
Yep.
And you know, the truth is there aren't a lot of people doing it.
Right.
So it really stands
So
out.
it stands out, right?
you
So
know?
I mean,
Yeah.
so all 3 of us, we always are just like, oh, you need a dentist? Go to ours. And they are genuinely, they're a great dentist on top of it. But to get that incentive, it's so smart.
Absolutely.
You're back to seasonal businesses, and I was talking about the summer people, and,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be difficult sometimes. It's challenging to work with them, right? But they're important, right? And no matter what, they also like good deals.
Yes.
They won't tell you that sometimes, but they do. But specials, you know, restaurants can do that as well. But they also refer business. So if you're a landscaper or you do their pool, you know, and somebody new is coming in to your area, that's the first thing they do. And by the way, real estate brokers, a lot of people don't realize what influencers they are, because they are introducing homes to new people coming from out of the area. And what does that person need? They need everything, right? And like, well, who should I go to take care of the pool? I got a great guy for you. And
Yes.
so I always tell people, first of all, introduce yourself to the Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
Let them know who you are.
The power of
You know,
networking.
absolutely.
Right. And there are pre-established, exactly to your point about the
Yeah.
chamber, is there are pre-established places where
And they
you
want
can
you
go.
to succeed.
Exactly.
They're invested in it. You don't have to go to every meeting. Just go to the first one,
Mhm.
introduce yourself. If you can afford it, become a member of the chamber.
Right.
And you'll get the inside scoop on the area you're
Yes.
working in, and you'll get to know people better. And a lot of those people have lived there for years, so they know who's who. And yeah,
Yeah, and it's really powerful too if you are in, maybe you dabble in both business to customer and business to business. And if you're in a business to business, I was a part of the Chamber of Commerce in Terre Haute, Indiana, and I was a B2B. My company was B2B, and they invited me to one of their conference meetings that was specifically with a particular type of manufacturing companies. And so it was just them. And they're like, we'd like you to come and speak, and you can tell them about your services and the kind of type of benefits and stuff. Because I was doing a lot of talent acquisition, talent retention strategies for a business. And it was great because then you can curate your offer and everything, or like how you communicate with them specifically towards that model, towards that
Right.
type of conference.
Right.
And so like there are so many opportunities built into the chamber that are just waiting there for you, and they're everywhere.
Absolutely. And you know, you just mentioned like feedback too. You get from people who have been in business a long time
Yes.
and can give you tips as to what to do, but
Yes.
also your customers. A lot of times we don't ask customers, what do they want? what are they? How's it going? Do you like the place? You know, some of my favorite restaurants are where the owner walks around the room and
When
says
you
hello to people
when you meet the
and talks
owner,
to them, not just how's things going,
yep,
everything's okay. I see you've been here before. You were
yep,
here last week,
yep.
right? Oh boy, notice that, and it's gold.
I had that happen at the Paramount in Huntington, but it wasn't the owner. This was I don't know if it's equally as powerful, but man, it sure hit me, right in my emotional heartstrings.
Mm-hmm.
Like I showed up and uh my wife was out of town for business and I was going there. It was my birthday and I was going to see this particular artist that I've loved for like 15 years. Never thought I'd ever see him perform in person. And he showed up on my birthday to perform at the Paramount in Huntington. So I
Wow.
went there alone and I showed up and it was one of the ladies who helps you find your seat, like
Oh
once
yeah,
you get through.
ushers,
Right.
whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, "Hey, where's your wife?" And I was like, "You know me? I've been here 3 times." And she knew me well enough to like recognize me, to recognize that I have a wife and that we always go together. And so she didn't even say, "Where's your wife?" She's like, "Oh, when your wife gets here, like I can tell her where you're gonna go. Like, is she in the bathroom?" And I was like, "What is going on right now?" So that level, I mean, that's the type of employee that you want to be looking for as
Yes.
as an owner of an
Yes.
establishment. And so, but then even back directly to your point, you going out and engaging and you being the owner, and especially like you can think about that from even like the landscaping or the pool service, because the
Mm-hmm.
owner isn't, if you have a team and you've hired people that are going out, it's not like the owner has to go out and do the measurements and do all of this
Right.
stuff,
Right.
but to go out even on your own
Yeah.
outside of
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
just communicate with them and say,
We could brainstorm about all the wonderful things. There's 2 words that always come to mind is make people feel valued and
yes,
appreciated.
oh my gosh,
Employees, customers, everybody you meet. I mean, it's so powerful. I know myself. You treat me like that, I'm going to be your star forever. Neglect me, I'll do it, but
right,
it won't be the same
yeah, will I
enthusiasm.
go back to you? will
Yes.
i be will I
I
be
don't have that.
shopping
I don't have
around?
that pull.
Right.
There was a guy in a furniture store we went to, and he actually moved away, and I was so sad. Young kid had these bright white shoes. It was so funny. He was amazing. As soon as we'd walk in, he'd be running over to us and like, "Hi guys, you're back." I didn't know if you'd come back. He just full of life, and we felt so special. And we didn't buy right away.
Mhm.
We looked around, but something about that. It's like when I picked my college. It was the
Mhm.
person who did the tour that is the reason I went there. They
How
were
cool
so
is that?
amazing, and other tour guides weren't. So that's what you are. You're the tour guide to your
Mhm.
business. Think of yourself that
That's
way.
brilliant.
Are you pointing out all the great features? Are you making sure that everybody knows that you appreciate them for
Mhm.
being there? Because that and setting up a customer database is your way of saying you're important to me. I need to know how to reach you because I'm going to have opportunity for you and I want you to know about it. That's
Mhm.
all. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to make sure that you know the best time to come, the
Right.
best deals I have. At the end of the season, I'm going to be getting rid of inventory, possibly reducing things. I see you have your eye on that. I can put your name down. There's even a guy
Right.
in the deli that knew I liked a particular food, and he took my name and put it up on a sticky. He says, "I'll call you when I make it again."
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like, "What?"
Oh my gosh.
And he
Something
did.
something
It
that
was
I've seen,
crazy.
another interesting strategy, kind of the last point I want to make before I want to shift into kind of inventory management, both in the on season and transitioning to the off season.
Hmm.
But oh my gosh, did I just do it again? I think I just did it again. I like lose the train of thought right in the middle. I didn't want to lose the next thing we were going to go into.
If it helps you at all, she was talking about how
Oh, I remember. So a strategy that I've seen some startups do, especially in like the food service industry, like restaurants,
Hmm.
whatever, is when they're first starting, and especially if it's an independent, not like a franchise or anything like that, but it's like their own place, is when they get their first like kind of diehard frequent customers that are coming back multiple times a week to eat
Right.
there, they'll name food after that.
Oh yes, yes. There's a deli in our area that does that. Well, especially with like celebrities and stuff. But
Sure.
even so, the celebrity came to that place and they named the thing after it, and people want it.
Brilliant.
You know, they want that Mets burger or whatever.
Yes.
You know,
yes. Tap into the culture.
And bakeries, like in baseball season, they'll have Mets cookies and Yankee cookies. You know, it's silly stuff, but
Mhm.
people fall for that and they
Yeah.
love it. They want
Yeah.
to bring it home to the grandkids.
Exactly.
You know? So, it's those tricky little things that just take a little thought.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing to do with your employees. Say, listen, bring them in,
Right.
collaborate.
Right.
Don't be tops down. Say, listen, you guys, you're out there, you know, doing stuff. What should we incorporate into what we do?
That's so interesting because my very first like real full-time non-seasonal job was working at a restaurant, and the level of creativity that happens with food production in the back that nobody knows about, like the type of things that we made that weren't on the menu, that we were just like fiddling around, like what happens if we do like this and this and we
Right,
put it
right.
together. And to be able to look at if you're a tapped in owner, or if you have tapped in managers who are communicating with the owner and they're seeing this and they're like actually engaging with the employees in a way that's not just, you know,
Yeah,
do this,
looking
do
for
this, do
new-
this. It's you're seeing what they're doing and you give them the space to be able to do that. Then
Empower them.
you can come up with a whole new item that's on the menu that's for sale, and you can even like you can honor the people that made it,
cool is
or
that?
yeah, and then that goes back to, so like you have the opportunity to do this with, like we were talking about, with the customers who might be coming in, or like the big name customers and things like that, or tapping into the culture with sports teams and things of that
you
nature.
could do a sandwich
But
of the
then
month or something for Matt, or this one, or
100%.
number one customer of the month.
Yes.
My son was a server, and one thing I learned from him, and he's really very good at it. And he would always say to people, he would say to us, anything you don't see on the menu, and you know, if it's possible, we'll make it for you. And I was like, really? Yeah, okay. You know, like I want this, but I want broccoli in it. No problem. We could do that.
Yeah.
And it is a pain sometimes. You don't want that to be the habit. But if you see somebody that's struggling to figure something out, say, listen, you know, I mean, I like that flexibility too. Again, making people feel special, valued, and appreciated. You know?
There's been so many times when I've been at a restaurant and I see like maybe like a pasta dish, or I see a couple of them, and I was like, oh, I wish I could have that sauce on that one. and then you know, every once in a while I ask them, I'm like, can I get that? And they're like, of course.
Right.
And when they say, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I ever questioned asking. I'm always gonna ask. You know? But it's because the worst thing that's gonna happen is like, no, we can't really, you know, and like, okay, that's fine.
I
That's
hate
kind of
that.
that's kind of your anticipation.
Yes.
You know, going in anyway.
It has to be this way.
But knowing that, and then but openly giving that to your customers, like overtly, that can change it, where you know, they're like, oh wow, I can.
Well, also empowering your employee to make that decision. You know, like that's something they don't have to come running back to you and say, Matt, is it okay?
Right.
No.
Right.
Just
Yeah. So the
make them happy.
How
you know, they're
so
here
perfect.
for dinner.
That's so like the communication is so critical between the owner and the managers, and the managers with the employees, and then the employees with the customers. Like it's all of this level of communication and just putting that priority on it from the top down. That's like, communications are top priority, and we want to make sure that these are the types of things that we're communicating.
Well, some restaurants have tapped into that. I see on their menu they'll have different pastas, different sauces, different.
That's true.
You know,
build
chicken,
your own.
shrimp, or
Sure,
whatever.
yeah.
So they can kind of pull it all together for
That's
you.
true.
So that has evolved
Yeah,
through the years.
you're 100% right. That was never a thing, and it has been relatively common.
More so.
Yeah. How interesting.
It's fun, you know, and you have to approach it that way. And back to the busy season, it's an important time, but you don't want to get cocky about it, I guess, right? You got to remember there's going to be that off season coming.
Exactly.
So you want to throw some money off on the side or build a pivot, which landscapers, what do? They do snow removal, they do Christmas decorations,
Right.
right? Garden centers, they could become an event place in the off season,
Brilliant.
right? Because they have that big space and
Mhm.
they could just make it an art event,
Right.
right? Or a wellness event, a
Right.
yoga
Yeah.
thing.
Or even host like if you have that type of space that is indoor and is heated, like if you have a
Mm-hmm.
garden center, which is like
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily the greenhouses, but I think of like the Walmarts even, and they have their kind of glassed in
Right,
areas that you
right.
go into.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's not time for that
Yeah,
anymore,
well,
like you could do even like these like almost a vendor event where you have people
yes,
of different businesses come in, they
right.
register, they pay you to come in, and then they can all sell their own business stuff in
Yeah.
there. And then you can show that you're honoring like small business and startups in the area. And so you have then it's also a
Well,
almost
get
like a
in touch with
publicity.
event planners and
Right.
collaborate with
Yep.
them on how
Yep.
could I use my space. And
Exactly.
sometimes they're really kind of cool spaces because a
Yeah.
lot of greeneries and things.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Ice cream places, they'll bring in baked goods soup. They'll switch over.
That's good.
There's a lot of pivots like that that can bring in revenue after the season.
Mhm.
Maybe not as much, but one thing they can do also is back to restaurants. But
Mhm.
I noticed there's a restaurant out there that does like a locals card in the winter. So you pick up the locals card and you get 10% off on your meal or something. But it's kind of fun because it's like, oh, I'm a local.
Yes.
And you just have to show them your address, on something, and they know you actually live there year
That's
round.
smart.
So it's kind of cool. But
Yeah.
things like that, rewards cards, and we're
Mhm.
back to all of that, the promos that you need
Yes.
in those off season.
Yeah, and it goes back to like the paying it to understanding your business, understanding like you said the seasons within the seasons of your seasonal business. So
Right,
if you
right.
look at that pool analogy where you have
Changing
your
dynamic
construction,
there.
and
Yeah.
then when you understand the seasons within the seasons and you understand kind of the cash flow that comes with that, you can start, when you're setting money aside, if, ideally you're making money, right? And so then you're taking that money, you're setting it aside, but then you have your eye towards the future.
Right. And you have to really compare month to month, right? At the end of a month, you have to sit down with that P&L, that income
Mhm.
statement. What did I bring in? What did I spend? And what was my bottom line? And looking ahead to the next month, what are my fixed costs
Mhm.
that are not going away?
Right.
And what's variable? What can I change? Staffing is a variable, right?
Yep.
Sometimes if you make it. So you don't want to bring on full-time employees that are expecting to work there year round. A thing with seasonal businesses, they have to hire people that are seasonal.
Mhm.
So make sure people want to be seasonal, number one, because you don't want to come to the end of the summer and they're like, oh, I thought I was going to be able to stay. No. Same time next year.
We talk a lot about in the building your business, we talk a lot about identifying your target customer, right?
Mhm.
And so you want to understand like the demographics, the psychographics, like what are they into, how do they spend their time, where are they socializing, and all of those kinds of things on top of how much money do they make, are they married, do they have kids, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera.
Right.
It's the same thing, especially for seasonal businesses, and you can take that same model and put it on employees.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah, you really can.
what are like
They're
what do they
your
do?
image too.
Right.
They
Right.
represent you. when
Because
you're-
if you're looking for summer workers,
Mhm.
college students, high school students could be a great opportunity because
Yeah.
they're out and are
They need
likely they
money.
need money. Exactly. They
and
all
they
need
work
money.
weird hours and they're
Yeah.
okay to do that.
Right.
And they don't have kids and they don't have activities and they're great. And again, it's like them and the retired people too don't have the kids and those
Right.
obligations. So they
Right.
may want to get out and be with the younger people.
Yep.
It could be very inspiring for them.
Absolutely.
So don't discount them. There are some good people out there at all stages and
Yeah.
ages. But yeah, definitely we're on the right track there, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Um,
When we're considering the inventory management, to me, like the first thing that comes to mind
Mm.
is, again, to your point, which is just so perfect, is that you have to understand, you have to really understand your business. And, there's a certain level of kind of guesswork and projections, but like the more communication you're having, the more promotionals, the more marketing, the better kind of feedback you can get as to what you can anticipate.
right.
And then you can kind of schedule and plan your inventory accordingly. because the last thing that you want at the end of your busy season is to be, you know,
Flush.
fully stocked with all of this inventory that sure it might be fine to have to be able to use going into the next busy season of that, like the next year,
Maybe. Yeah.
if you have the money and the space to be able to store it and maintain it. If it's not, I'm thinking, you know, like restaurants, this would not really apply for, because it's,
No,
you know,
they're more.
it's constant.
Turnover
Yes.
more with those.
Yeah.
But certainly some things that are trending this year are not trending next year.
That's true too. Like even when you look at landscaping, and if you're looking at like stonemasonry and things like that, the styles, like is
Right.
this style gonna be
Right.
as lucrative next year as it is this year? Maybe the
And you brought up space, which it's funny. I had a bicycle company once, and I went to his place, and he needed money because he needed to build more storage. So I went into his place, and he had parts that they look like from the 1800s, some of them, right? So I was like, well, what about all these parts? You have so many. And he goes, oh, you never know. Someone's going to come with that bike and need that part. And I said, but the cost of this space, is that worth it to keep that? Is there another way that you could handle this, or do it online, or source it for them, a rare part like that? Or could you sell it to somebody else? But it was putting the connection between inventory not only cost you money, but costs you money to keep.
Yep.
So the idea is to move it quickly, and if it's not moving, discount it, get it out.
Right.
Hopefully you get back what you paid for it, right?
But you have to, in getting back what you paid for it, you also have to factor in the amount of money you're going to spend to keep it. Just like you said. So so you have to factor that into that same analysis, that it's like, yeah, I might take a loss on this, but I have to think about the loss I'm going to take if I don't make any money selling it, and I have to maintain the space available in order to keep it.
And trends like bicycles change. You know, now we're into e-bikes and all that.
Right.
So you want to bring that new stuff in, and you don't have room because you have all this stuff from 30 years ago. Maybe keep one. You know? I don't know, but it's hard because it's like in our personal lives, we have the same struggle, right? We have all this junk that kind of builds up, and it's so hard to get rid of it. You might need it someday. And then someday you do need it and you don't have it, and I have to go buy it. I identify with that struggle.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's something everybody has.
Exactly.
It's the same for business. So
it's
it
that
really is.
I think that's a really good segue into the mindset of a seasonal business owner.
Yep.
Because there are so many different considerations, just like that, just like we were talking about with how to consider letting go of things and selling things, or choosing what to get, and then managing the employees. And there's so many more variables than might exist for a year-round business.
And you have to embrace it, and understand that this is a temporary thing. This season, it doesn't go on, so you can pivot to another season, maybe use the same equipment and space for something else.
Right.
But a lot of that inventory, or even like chemicals, and people store stuff, there are life spans to a lot of those things, right? Have you ever gone in a store and picked it up and looked at the expiration date, right, and go, oh my God, I only have a week left to use this. So it's important also to keep inventory managed, so you know when you bought it, what you paid for it, how long has it been there, what is the expiration date, if there is one, and start moving that inventory. And really, there's a lot of moving parts, right, to a business. It's not easy. And that's why we always recommend people spend some time in that business before they own one
as
of
an
their
employee.
own. Yeah, because it's challenging. A lot of people will say, a common refrain is, I make money for the owner, and I want to now make money for myself. Simply said, that sounds right, but are you the one doing the books at night when he's at home, poring over everything, worrying about his inventory, worrying about his cash? There's so many elements to owning a business that you're not seeing, perhaps. So that's our job, is to kind of put that reality out there. And it's not a Debbie Downer kind of thing. It's just
Right.
an exposure. Like,
Yes.
be aware that it's not about just this. There's all
Right.
these other parts
Yes.
that go into it.
Yeah, it's a familiarity, like the thing that you get from being an employee at a seasonal company or at any company, but the seasonal specifically, because there have to be much more kind of dynamic tracking systems and mechanisms for everything that's going on. And so if you're out there doing the work, if you're doing the labor or you're customer facing and things like that, like you probably get to be pretty good at your job. Like you stick around long enough,
Right.
you figure out what's effective, what's not, you figure out shortcuts and all this stuff. That's for the doing side, which is really good because then you can communicate those things with your own business to the employees that are coming in, like, hey, listen, I found this more effective way to do this. We don't have to do that. We can save this much time here, so on and so forth. But then it's just like you said, it's the back office things. And so you have to, in that position, having the motivation and the personal drive to ask, like, hey, can I get looped in, like, on the books? Can I see how this works? Or how do we manage this inventory?
A great point, because a lot of people have accountants that they see once a year.
Yep.
And it's the box of receipts that they dump off, right? But I can't stress that enough. Like, just the basic, what came in, what went out, and what's the bottom line every month. Sit down, do that. And if your accountant is the one that does your books, ask them to share it with you and explain it to you. Just get familiar. You don't need the balance sheet at this point. Just look at what's coming in, what went out, and what's the bottom line.
Yep.
And make adjustments as needed, because the next month the source of revenue could change,
Right.
the staffing level could change. There's a lot of uncertainty in life. You're not going to be able to predict everything in a business, but there are some things. And if you look at an existing business, we hadn't talked about the off season, but that's your chance to do the exercise. It's called start, stop, and continue.
Ooh, just say more.
It's an exercise where you look back at what happened last year and you say, okay, we need more of this, so we're going to start doing more of that.
Got it.
We're going to stop doing this because that was totally ineffective and we have all this inventory left over. And the continuous things you've always been doing and keep doing. Right? So you need to sit down and really look at what worked, what didn't work, and what can we do better. That's really what it is. And taking that time now, or really at the end of the season, but now is good. We're planning for the next year. We know people resist planning. They think it's like, oh, I got to sit there and do a business plan and tape it all up. No. The main thing is just to look at it and see what you notice.
And it's impossible.
Year over year, what changed?
Yeah, and it's impossible to do that if you don't have systems in place that drive the production of products necessary to do the analysis, like a profit and loss statement.
Right.
So if say your seasonal business is up for 6 months, like fully functioning, going through its different internal seasons, but being able to, if you take the time to actually to break that down each month, then you sit down and you have 6 of these P&Ls that you can go through and you can see what changed, where did the money start increasing, where did it stop decreasing. And this can be very powerful for a business that's just getting started if they want to go into it. And maybe they understand how to do the work. Like my always go-to is landscaping. So if you want to go, like, I know I've worked for a landscaping company and all of this. So I bought a couple of mowers. I got some weed whackers. I got a buddy of mine who's going to come out there and do some work with me. It's going to be great. And then they do it. But then it's so easy to stay focused and just in this loop of, I communicate with a customer, I'm planning, I'm booking, we're going out, we're doing the work. Okay, we got to jump from this job to this job. And then that just turns into this ever-present, huge priority that you're always feeding into.
When you're in season, that's your focus is really just executing your plan.
Right.
You don't have time as much. But once a month, you have to stop.
Exactly.
You have
exactly.
to
So
build
if you,
time in
it all goes into like the actual scheduling. And so if it's a day, maybe it's a day on the weekend, or maybe it's a day when you have typically low work, or you just, you can identify that, like, okay, we typically, like, our Mondays seem to be slower,
Right.
or maybe there's a time of day, like, okay, we do a bunch of our landscaping up until like 3-4 p.m. And then it kind of dies down because people are getting home, they don't want to deal with
Right.
us while they're
So
there.
bring in some pizzas.
And so, yeah, exactly. Then we're going to sit down. And so we
Right.
just say that and you actually mark it in the calendar. Like, this is our place of business, is to sit here and to go through this. And then when you do the first one, you realize how much information you weren't making sure to track in a diligent way. So you're going to spend 3 times the amount of time to build it out the first time. But then you're going to say, all right, whenever we're getting
have a
gas,
baseline
I
now.
want receipts.
Right.
Whenever we're doing this, I want receipts. And we need to, and this is where the receipts go. And it's fine. You could take a picture of it and then we send it to a shared drive, a Google Drive or whatever.
Right.
And then we have a central repository of this information that we can then feed into it. And then you keep learning and growing how to make that more efficient each time.
Right.
So you can't go into it the first time and like, this is so hard. Like, how much time I took, like 5 hours to work through this P&L.
Well, and it also prepares you for tax season, right? Because
Yes.
you now have all your stuff and you're not stressing about, oh, I didn't save all that. And da, da, da,
Right.
da, da. Yeah, but you can make it fun. I would include employees in
100%.
that. Call it, recap, monthly
Yeah,
recap,
yeah.
and bring them all in. How did it all go? Anybody have any problems? How did Mrs. Jones do? Did she give you a hard time? What can you
Right.
do differently for her?
Yes.
Like those kind of little tweaking things.
Mhm.
And I'm sure there are people out there right now listening and going, I don't have time for that. I can barely, keep my head above water. And I get it.
Yeah.
But it goes back to managing that stress that is inevitable with a seasonal business. You're going to be like a million things going. You're just trying to keep everything good. You got to keep a good reputation. You don't want anybody to do anything that tanks it. So if you stay on top of it and you kind of see those little bubbles coming and you can kind of splash them off before they rise up into a big tide and
Right.
overwhelm you. So
Right.
I think
Well,
it's
and it's
really
like,
important.
and I think what happens is, when we're looking at kind of the psychology of this and you're talking about like the stress and these things, these anxiety driving factors like taxes, like tracking this stuff, and you're like, oh, I don't have time. You know, you look at it and it's like you're maintaining this level of underlying stress underneath everything you're doing because you got to do it.
Right.
Like, you have to
Right.
track the
It's
numbers.
backing
You're gonna, at the end of the year, you're
And
gonna have
most
to
people
talk to your
don't
own accountant.
understand numbers, so
Right.
they
And so that's another layer of it too. And
Yes,
it's,
right.
and then you
they
don't,
think it's too complicated.
Yes.
I don't understand it. And even through COVID, we had to ask people like, how much revenue did you have last year?
that's so
I
interesting.
can't tell you
That's
how
so
many
interesting.
people. Just that simple thing. So stopping every month and knowing this is how much we brought in, and then the next month if it goes up, that's great, But remember, if you're seasonal, that's great, but you're doing 6 months instead of a year. So you have
And it
to
just-
find to spread it out and
It all goes to like the efficacy of your systems. Like, do you have a
to
system
make
in
it
place?
easier. Nowadays,
Yeah.
there are a lot of apps and a lot
Yeah.
of programs that you can take on if you have the money and the time and all
Right.
that. But if you can't,
I mean, you
That's
can
okay,
still
do it
you can,
manually,
yeah,
but
like you can make
just-
a rudimentary
yeah.
system, but it's like you're going to. I firmly believe that your business is going to succeed or fail based on your level of systems. And so if you don't have, if you're not thinking about this and thinking about putting the correct and effective systems in place, like you're gonna have all of these things that are bubbling underneath the surface that you're not thinking of, and it's fine. There are going to be things, just like you said, there are things that you're not going to think of, but then when it comes up, the first thought that you should have is like, how do I create a system to manage this that reduces my stress, that makes sure that I'm tracking the things that are necessary to go into this, like if it's the cash flow, like how do I track this? And one of the things that we talk about all the time is like, having your business team put together, having your bail. And so one of the first thing in that acronym is the business bank account. And even if you don't start with the business bank account, if you just open up another banking account that's not touching your bank account, so you can't do this easy swap of money, then your ability to just go in and check, like all of the income for the business goes into that bank account.
right.
And then like how much stress does that relieve from you when you're going in like, I have to check my numbers. Like, oh, all I have to do is go into that bank account and I can see like, oh,
In
that
month,
much.
this
Yeah,
month,
I can pull out the
read up my
statement.
deposits.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, you're reminding me of the secret of a franchise. What's a franchise? It's a system.
It's a system.
It's okay. I can duplicate, and if you want to scale, if you want to open a second
Systems.
location, think how much easier that is when you have that system refined and working like everybody knows where this goes, where that goes. It's like your home. Where do you put things away?
Yep.
And when people put it in the wrong spot, how much time you spend looking for it.
I know this is so far past the area of focus for people that are in these businesses or thinking about starting it. But when you think about succession planning or like your exit plan from the business,
right. You want it to live beyond you.
people don't buy your business.
Mm-hmm.
They buy the systems that you've created.
Exactly.
And the more effective your systems are and the more clear they are and the easier they are to just fall into,
Right.
then the more valuable your business is.
Absolutely.
Like people always think it's like, oh, it's just how much money it makes. Like, yes, that's very important. But if I can't, like, this is the reason that dental offices have such a hard time with their succession planning, because they might have great systems, but it doesn't. This goes to what Sarah was saying earlier, that she found this dentist that she feels comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Dentist is a highly nerve-wracking event for a lot of people.
Right.
And so when you find somebody that you're comfortable with, like, okay,
Right.
I've got my guy or gal, and so even if somebody comes in and buys it and keeps everything the same and all of the chairs and color, everything is exactly the same. Like, I don't know this guy, I don't know this gal.
You bring up a good point, because a lot of people buy existing businesses,
Right.
and they're considered startups. And I say, why do they go, what is it? Why is it a startup? Because it's new to you.
Because you're a startup.
How much better would it be if you go to a bank and you say, but this guy's willing to share 3 years of financial records, and he has a system for this and a system for that, and he's written everything down through the years. So he's got a plan. He's willing to share that. If I was a lender, I'd be like, let me see that.
Mhm.
Because
And especially
right away, it's not about how much money he made.
Right.
It's more than that. It's
Yeah.
there, and sometimes sellers will stay in place.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that, and if you can negotiate that into it when you're buying that, even if it's something like a landscaping company or, like a small restaurant, and you worked there and you're purchasing it from them because they're done, they're ready to retire and go to Florida. If you're doing it and you're like, would you be willing to stay on? And you might even negotiate the price over this, because the value of their counsel and the value of their presence, especially with the handing over of relationships, is so critical. And then you take that to the bank too. Like, this person has agreed to stay on for a year,
Right.
And so like, that's just another level of value. That's like, no, this really, like, you've worked there for 7 years and under this person the whole time, and they're willing to stay on and do this like handover mentorship with you as the owner for another year, like that's, and it's all built on these well-positioned, well-laid out systems that are all in the business plan.
Right.
That's, I think, to your point, I think that's very appetizing for any lender.
It feels good on both sides, because
Right.
I'm giving you my business and I know it's going to be run the way it works,
Right.
because I've spent 20 years figuring it out. You respect that, you take it, and your stress level is much lower,
Right.
because you're not starting from scratch. You've got something. And again, that's the appeal of a franchise, right?
Right.
You have a
100%.
mentorship group. You've got people that have them all over the place.
Well-established
all-
brand.
Absolutely. So if you want to scale up, that is a really good thing. But even if it's your only place, you live a better life by investing that time. But I get it why people don't want to do it, but it's one of those things, it's like everything else, if you put the time in, you get the energy out.
Yeah, and it's I always love the analogy of, or the fun question of like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. And so it's just like, you don't have to think about, oh my gosh, they're talking about systems and systems and systems, and I have to sit here and create all these systems. It's like, no, you can do it backwards. Like, you can go in and do the business, and when you run into a problem that needs solving, it's important when we think about mindset. It's like take on the mindset of not how do I solve it now, but how do I solve it permanently?
And what resources do I have?
Yeah,
Right?
and
Because
what?
there's a lot of people that can help you put those systems in, show you how to do it.
Yes.
Everybody can grow and learn through that
Yes.
process. And I think it's really important to keep track of things that are going on in your business.
Yes.
There's a lot of bookkeepers that people hire that steal money and whatever. Why? Because the owner's not looking at anything.
And they don't understand.
No.
Yeah.
And it seems it's complicated, but it really isn't. You live a life. Your life has income. Your life has expenses. So does the business. It's a baby. It's your baby.
Right.
Right? And the whole point of it is you feed it a lot, and then it grows up and it becomes its own person.
Yep.
can
And then
run
think
on
about
its
that
own.
for any parents that are out there. This is such a
Yeah.
perfect analogy because
Yeah.
you come up with systems of how to take care of your baby. Like
Yeah.
you're like, this is
absolutely.
where
Think of
we.
when you first have the baby.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's like, oh my God, what is he doing? Why
Chaos.
is he crying? What does it need?
And
Is
then
it
you,
the diaper?
yeah.
I
Then
just
you
changed
have
the diaper.
like you buy the changing table.
Right.
That's where we change the diaper.
Mhm.
This is where the diaper genie goes. That's where the diapers
Exactly.
go.
And how do
and
you
so-
know how many diapers to buy?
Exactly. Like,
know?
and so in the beginning, it's just like, oh, we got to
When we
figure it
need
out.
them.
We got to figure it. Yeah. It's all,
Right.
and then you come up with this like, oh, okay, if I go every other week and I buy this amount of diapers, this
That
this
lasts,
works.
right.
But you figure it out by doing. And so
And
like,
also
and of course,
it's an inventory management because the baby's getting
Yeah.
bigger and the size of the diaper
Exactly.
gets bigger. So you don't want to buy too many.
you're better to the audience out there. You are better at this than you
Yes.
realize. You do this in your own life.
Absolutely, every day. And all of us, if we've gotten to this point in our life, we've done this kind of management. We've done these kind of thinking.
Yep.
And we know we could do better. But, with that baby, that business, this is your chance to start over and really do it. And we're here to help people through that
100%.
process. If they're willing and open and curious enough, there's resources out there. People
Right.
that are very happy to help. Yes, some cost money, but sometimes that investment is worth it. Warren Buffett always says he didn't become a billionaire on his own. He was smart in the beginning because he realized that if he set up a team of professional experts, he could go to this guy for accounting. He could go to that one for marketing. And they helped him build. He did what he did best and other people. And a lot of people go into business because they're good at what they do.
Right.
But they don't realize that that's not what you're going to be doing when
Yep.
you own a business.
Yeah. It's like the technician.
You're now
Right,
you're
yeah.
now the manager,
Right.
and you have all these other responsibilities.
Right.
So you're taking on a job with new skills needed, and so you got to grow with it.
Absolutely.
But it's fun. It's a good thing to do.
And so a beautiful thing that you're doing is I love that. Thank you so much for reaching out to us and wanting to come onto the podcast to share this message. I think it's beautiful. I think it's the right time and the right place. But this isn't where this journey ends. You're hosting something very special. Would you care to?
Sure,
Tell
we
us
have a workshop. My colleague Ree Wackett and I are doing one because
You guys should know Ree.
I know.
Ree's been on the show. She's been on 2
she's
episodes.
So she does a lot more in the North Fork, and I do more of the South Fork. So we kind of pooled our resources together, and we're doing a workshop on March 14th at 9 o'clock, and that'll be live, but we tape all our workshops. So
Beautiful.
if you can't watch it then, and I get it, it's seasonal, so they're all busy now. Watch it at night, or throw it on in the morning while you're having your breakfast and just listen in. But if you're on, you can ask questions. But most importantly, we want to invite people to come in and take time to just build that strategy and know that we're an ongoing resource. So
Beautiful.
we get it. We get the challenges. We hear them all the time.
Absolutely.
And we're happy to help.
So we'll definitely have the link to the registration in the show notes in the description of this episode so that people can go and check it out there. Would you say that this would be a valid webinar to attend for people outside of the area and across the country? Because we have a global audience. So
Sure. I think actually a lot of what we've talked about today is even for non-seasonal businesses,
100%.
right?
100%.
It's basic business practice,
Mhm.
right? And it's stuff that we always learn. It's just applying it and taking the time. And I think what the end game here is to manage that stress that comes with being an entrepreneur. That uncertainty starts to go away because you got your handle on everything. You know what's coming in, you know what's going out, you know what it costs to be that business, and you make sure that you have the money available to do it. And it is good to have a little reserve before you start as far as money goes. They say a couple of months of your expenses. Because you don't want to get halfway into the season and realize this isn't going as planned. I don't have enough money. It takes a little while to build up.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Do you want to go through the checklist?
Yeah. So my Are You Ready checklist. Signage. What's important about signage, right? Is it clear? Is it visible? Do you have posted hours? Online? At the place of business, an open and close sign to let people know when they're pulling up, whether you're open or closed, and make sure that's accurate, right? Don't say you're open when you're closed. And make sure your hours on Google My Business and on your website are correct because they change in the summer season, and it really irritates me when I get there. And I looked online. I just had this happen to me, and they weren't open, and it said they were online.
Wait, so funny. Just from personal experience. So I worked at a seasonal retail shop in Bayshore. Not seasonal-ish, I should say. So they flipped what they sold during the winter and summer months. It was a surf shop in the summer right by Maple Avenue, which brings the ferries to Fire Island. And then in the winter, they would flip and do snowboarding, skiing.
Oh, there's a great pivot.
Right, doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I noticed when I was going in for my interview, I showed up on time. I was a little bit early, but the store hours said we're open from 10 a.m.-ish to 5 o'clock-ish. And I wish that I was making that up, but that's exactly what it was.
I don't even necessarily see that as a total negative because you have to think about the culture that they're selling to. If you're selling to surfers,
Define the ish.
But
and
my thing is with the ish is because of the nature of where the store is located. She knew that her target market is going to be people that maybe have forgotten something, that need to catch a ferry on their way to Fire Island. So if your ish coincides with the ferry ticket, that's a little
It
yikes.
also says something about the owner.
Yeah.
Well,
she was very
committed.
She was very laid back, California, go with the flow vibes.
Yeah, if you knew that about her, then that's fine. Otherwise, I look at it and go,
right. But in the
that's
same
not respectful.
The same instance, if I'm like, oh my God, I forgot a bathing suit. Let me stop at this surf shop really quick, but I have to make my 10:30 ferry. But you're telling me that you were 10-ish.
With that being your target
how
market,
long do
that
I
is
stand
not
there
smart.
before
Right.
you ish?
Right.
When does the ish wear off?
What's the ish window?
Yeah.
I need your ish window.
Yes, is it 10:05, 10:15,
Yeah,
10:20?
but the accuracy
and I'm
of
gonna
it.
miss my
It's 11.
And then you heard me go off about Firestone with their hours saying that they were open.
It's so simple, but it's
a
really
huge
annoying.
thing.
Yeah,
It's a huge thing.
It
People leave
is.
negative reviews about that stuff.
Yes. Well, like I said, I just had an experience where I was driving 25 miles to go to a store that said it was open at 9. And my husband turned to me and goes, why don't you just call them, make sure. I call, and they're not open. Right. And I'm like, I would have been royally PO'd. Plus, I left a message, a voicemail, came on. And I left a message like, I was about to go to your store, but, your online says 9 a.m., but you're actually closed on Saturdays. Why a business that does home improvement would be closed on Saturday makes no sense to begin with. Know your market. People are working. They can't come during the day. Your hours reflect your customer's convenience, not yours. Right. So that's 100%. Very important. But also check. I can't tell you how many people I go, did you look at your website recently? Because there's lots of things that are wrong. Okay, second, capital and cash flow. Money, at least 2 months' expenses in the bank, access to credit. If you can get it, a credit card, a line of credit, something for an emergency. If something breaks, a machine breaks, somebody calls in sick, you have to get a temp, whatever, you have to have flexibility in those monthly P&L check-ins. Very important. Space, right? How many stores do we go in? Uncluttered, room to move around, the hottest items featured, curb appeal. Okay, I don't understand why people can't paint. I mean, paint is the easiest thing, right? There are some stores, all it needs is a coat of paint. Now's the time, before the season, to just put a fresh coat of paint. It's amazing. Everybody feels better, well-maintained bathrooms. Okay, how many businesses have a schedule of employees that go and check the bathroom once an hour? You know, did someone throw up in there? Did something happen? Is the toilet flushing? Is there toilet paper? Are there napkins to dry my hands? Simple, simple, simple. But I'll tell you, I don't go back to places that have disgusting bathrooms. So just put that on your list of training things. The website, is it easy to navigate and shop? Is your contact information on there? Do you have a shopping cart if necessary? Can you schedule appointments through the website? Social media, we didn't talk much about it, but having a posting strategy and having video, photos, teasers, getting out there. How often do you think they should do that on social media? How often do you think they should post?
Oh, it depends on the platform, and because if you are talking about any of the standard kind of social medias like Instagram, like Facebook, like LinkedIn, there is a shelf life on the post that you're doing. And so
Right.
I think LinkedIn's shelf life is 8 hours, and that might be on the longer side of all of the social media platforms. If you're posting on YouTube, it's a different thing unless you're posting shorts. But if we're looking at just a generalized frequency of social media engagement, for me, the strategy would be ramping up as we get closer to the season.
Right.
So maybe if we're
Building that excitement.
right,
Yes.
so like maybe we're
Yeah.
doing like some teaser posts,
Right.
you know, like every few days, maybe once a week. If it's like, you know, February, if it's like early February, and as you're getting closer, you're starting to do a little bit more. You're starting to reveal a little bit more, but you're holding a little bit back
Right.
What a
because you want to
great-
create some
And make sure you invite
suspense.
people to follow
Right.
you.
What a great
for
person to
promo.
ask.
Yeah,
Because Matt is like a marketing guru.
I know. I love it. I like seeing my clients on Instagram. I'm big on Instagram, but I like to see it, and I like to see what they're doing. I like to like them. Every now and then I'll put a comment. But at this time for a seasonal business,
yeah.
you should be saying, you know, follow us. We've got some promos. We're going to be introducing whatever. You want them to be
100%.
checking it out. So also having an actual schedule and not just when you think about it, you know, because people are expecting, they're
Yes.
waiting.
Well, yeah, and especially if you're driving, we spoke about this a little bit, but if you want to drive people, like your best means of communication, social media is good and it can grab attention in the moment, but we talked about email. And so if you're using social media to create lead generation, or if you're using it to, I call it either ethical bribes, freemiums, you know, whatever you want. There's so many words for this, but the idea is you put it out on Instagram and you say, if you want 50% off your first 3 landscaping services, click here, and then they click there and it's subscribed to our email list, and then they get the discount. So they get their free offer. And
Very
it can be,
organized.
and it doesn't have to be price off. It can be like, do you want this PDF of like how to maintain fresh flowers throughout the entire summer? Like, and here's an informational thing, like, and you give the first tip away in the
Right,
post.
right.
You say, if you want the next 4 steps, then
Sign up
then
for my
then
newsletter
sign
or
up for the
whatever.
newsletter.
Yeah, absolutely. I love giving something of value.
100%.
Whenever you communicate by email, I try to only do it when I have something to say that sounds important and useful, right? Not just to say, here I am, come
Right.
call me.
Right.
Yeah.
So when they see your name, when they see the business's name, they see the owner's name show up in the email address, they know that you're coming with something.
Right.
Like you're coming, there's a reason.
Yeah.
There's a specific offer. There's a limited time discount or something like that. That's relevant to right now, not just
People who know me, I do emails to my clients, and I always put a cartoon, usually, not always, but a lot, a seasonal. I go online and I find something really funny, and people actually respond to my email and go, oh, that really brought a smile to my face. You know, I like that. I think, you know, add a little humor or something, you know, give them something fun. Promos you talked about with the punch cards and the loss leaders and discounts on the next visit, which I love. I went to a restaurant and they said 10% when you come back within a month. And it was like, wow, I never thought of that. That's a great idea because how often do you go to the same restaurant?
Yeah.
Not much.
Not much.
You know? So that was good. Staffing, do you have enough? Make sure you have enough to give your customers a great experience. Nothing worse than not enough people during the busy season. You can't find people. There's lines. Everybody's like, "Ah." Or they got that person over there stocking shelves when there's a line knee deep, you know, and you're like, hello, why is that person? Why can't that person come over and help?
Right.
You know,
Right.
so have a strategy for that. If you get busier than you think you'll be, and during lunch or during dinner or whatever, having those staffed up sounds like common sense, but
Well,
it can take you by surprise.
well, that's the importance of having this beautiful checklist that you've created is that you can have it as a reference, you
Right.
know, to be able to
Right.
go off of like,
Gets you thinking.
where am I at? Like, what's my status on each one of these?
And what would happen if
right.
this happened or
100%.
that happened? And use your employees for that because they're right there. They're
Front
seeing
line.
things happen. And staff training is very important. I think everybody should be cross-trained. That's something I learned from banking. We're all like cross-trained to do whatever. You know, if it gets busy at the tellers, you know, you got to pull people off that line or this or that. You have to have a strategy, and the more flexible your people can be, the better off you're going to be as a business. And then connections to the community, which is the chamber. Introduce yourself, let them know you're alive, you're starting up, you know, you've got, you know, invite them in, have a special chamber day where all the businesses in the area can come and check you out, and you have, you know, out a plate of cheese or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and if you're looking to start this, to start a seasonal business, the chamber does really cool things like they do a ribbon cutting ceremony.
Right.
I just went to
that's
one for a
true.
client of mine.
And you know, the SBDC, we do a lot of socials, and I always tell people when you launch, I'll come and take a picture. And so many people don't take me up on that. And I think it's really like a lost opportunity because we have thousands of clients that are in your community. So allow us to share in that joy because we really get excited when people start a business or do something cool and we can be a part of it. So I think that's your freebie of the day from the SBDC.
There it is. There it
And
is.
that's it.
Amazing.
So wishing everybody the best of luck.
Willa,
with
you're
their season.
incredible.
Thank you. It was
so
fun to be
much.
here.
I'm glad.
Appreciate it.
I enjoyed myself.